Welcome to Taking Care of Your Music Business, brought to you by the Mechanical Licensing Collective, also known as the MLC. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the heart of the music industry, exploring how to get paid as a creative, making sure that you're receiving all the royalties you deserve. We'll also dive into building a sustainable career, sharing strategies and best practices that creators can use to achieve long-term success. Join us as we bring you interviews with top songwriters and music executives who share their personal journeys and professional wisdom on thriving in the business, all while making a living. So get ready for some real talk about navigating the music industry. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and be sure to catch all of our full episodes on YouTube.
So, for example, they say, oh, it's a 50-50 recoup. And so they're saying, okay, we take 50% and then you get 50%. But what they're not always telling you is the 50% that you're supposed to get isn't actually going to you. It is going back to them to recoup. So you're recouping off of 50% of the income that comes in. So if a dollar comes in, they take 50 cents off the top, and then they take 50 cents and apply it to your unrecouped balance.
Did not know that.
So usually you're paying twice the money back before you're fully recouped. So say you took $1 million, they're going to probably end up with $2 million before you have a cleared balance.
Hey everybody, welcome to Taking Care of Your Music Business presented by the MLC. I'm Lillian Glanton, and today we have Tony Alexander on the show, and we are so thrilled to have him here. Tony is the co-founder and president of Memphis Entertainment in Memphis, Tennessee. They have several companies under their umbrella, which we're going to dive into today. Today, we discuss how his company is taking a different approach when it comes to signing and working with creators, the ins and outs of money talk within a record label, and how his team is changing the game when it comes to the modern world of the music industry. We're so excited for you guys to hear this conversation. Without further ado, please welcome Tony Alexander.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Taking Care of Your Music Business presented by the MLC. I'm Lillian Glanton, and I have a very special guest in the house today. We have Tony Alexander coming all the way from Memphis. How are you?
Lily, I'm doing great. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, we're so glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. You have so many things that you're doing, especially in the Memphis realm, and it's such a cool thing that you're doing for songwriters, for artists, and today we're going to dive into all of that. But you are the president and co-founder of Memphis Entertainment, which is a full-service entertainment company. Tell me a little bit about that business.
Okay, sure. So Memphis Entertainment, and we kind of go by MIME now, and I'll kind of explain why, is because we've broadened beyond Memphis, but the original vision for the organization came from an interesting or a chance meeting between David Porter, the Hall of Fame songwriter.
Yeah.
We met about 13 years ago, shortly after I moved to Memphis, and he was setting up a nonprofit to support songwriters, producers, and recording artists, to really train them in their core areas. And I was actually introduced to him because he needed help with that nonprofit from a legal perspective.
Gotcha, because you do have an attorney background too. Yeah.
So I didn't actually do the work because that's not my core area. I'm an intellectual property or a patent attorney actually by training. But so we helped him resolve that issue, and he asked me, well, would you mind being a founding board member of this nonprofit? And I said, I'd love to. And so after seeing a few cohorts of the program, I realized, and David realized as well, that the talent, after they went through the training, they would leave Memphis. We wanted to find a way to keep the talent in the city. So we said, well, you know what we probably need to do is create a for-profit business that could help these artists stay home by offering alternative deal structures so that they were more artist or songwriter friendly. And so that's kind of the genesis of Memphis Entertainment.
Well, and we kind of discussed this as you were coming in. I'm from Muscle Shoals, and that's the same thing that's happened, throughout history, is people would come to Muscle Shoals, make great records, and leave, and take all that success with them, honestly. So that's really cool. Why are you so passionate about keeping it in Memphis?
The thing is, Memphis, the challenge for Memphis is that the talent's still there, but the spotlight shifted. And so it no longer has the focus that it used to have. And so a lot of times when people think about Memphis, they think about the past. It's more nostalgic as opposed
Same
to
thing with Muscle Shoals. Yeah.
And there's such a great relationship between Muscle Shoals.
Oh,
and
of
Memphis.
course.
It's like that is a connection that'll never be broken. And so when you think about it, this is also one of the greater missions of Made in Memphis Entertainment, or MIME, is that we realized that there are other cities besides Memphis that have that very same problem. Lots of talent, but lack infrastructure. So our business model really is about going into these markets and trying to establish the infrastructure by bringing resources, whether it be partnering with the studio owners, or if there are studios, if there aren't studios, building studios, creating these gathering places for creatives to come together. And then much like an Apple store, where you can go into Apple store, you can buy a device, you can get one fixed, you can talk to a genius, you can take classes. We wanted to have a hub where they can get the education, they can collaborate, they can find new partners, just a variety of different things. If they need a distributor, they need a publisher, all of those resources would be made available to them.
Well, and that's really cool. So under MIME, which is what it is, right?
Yes.
MIME. Okay.
Yes.
Under that umbrella specifically, like, not only are you giving tools and resources, but you're giving infrastructure to where artists can connect with publishers, with managers. There's studios inside where they can go and record their music.
Yes.
That is so cool.
So, for example, in Memphis, where our headquarters are located, we have a state-of-the-art facility. It's about 18,000 square feet. So in the bottom two floors, state-of-the-art recording studios. The top floors, we have offices, conference rooms, places where people can collaborate. We have Zoom rooms, so if they need to connect with people remotely. And so they can come in there, and under the Made in Memphis Entertainment umbrella, we have 7 operating businesses. And we offer these a la carte services. So if you want to use our distribution business, or you want to use our publishing or our sync business, or we even have a DIY rights management company. So however you want to use these services, you can use as many or as few. We also do regular events where we invite in other publishers, invite in other distributors, invite in various personnel that people can learn from. So we hope that people would work with us, because we are trying to make money.
Oh,
but
of course.
At the same time, we want to create a community, an environment where people can find who fits with them. And so it may not be us.
God, that's such a great idea. Can you guys come to Muscle Shoals?
Well, at some point we probably will, because
Man, we need that so badly.
our real focus, our business strategy is to focus in on the South.
Yeah.
And we believe that there's a real advantage for that, because the South probably creates some of the most impactful content, but it has some of the most, I guess, the most challenges as it relates to infrastructure.
Yep.
I know that you, of course, we've had the coast, LA and New York.
Of course.
Now Nashville is kind of like the center of the music universe. But outside of Nashville, there's a lack of infrastructure. And so we just think about our own Recording Academy chapter. So the Memphis chapter of the Recording Academy, which has St. Louis, New Orleans, Memphis. So when you kind of just go down the Mississippi River, all of those cities have very similar problems, the same problems as Muscle Shoals. Talent's there, but lack of awareness, lack of resources, lack of infrastructure. And so that's one of our goals, is to try to move into markets. So the next hub that we built outside of Memphis was in Atlanta.
Okay.
And we did that intentionally.
When did you guys build that?
In 2000, it was during the pandemic. So it was in 2000.
During the
very end of 2000.
Okay.
And we went public with it in 2001.
Whoa. Okay.
And so what we wanted to do is at least start with the regional hubs. And then once the regional hubs are actually tapping into these other markets, then we might go more specifically into cities and try to do a little bit more. But the regional approach has been a good start for us.
That's great. Who are some of the folks that you guys have worked with in the past?
Well, so we kind of have very diverse roster, both on the publishing and the distribution.
When it's all different, is it all different genres?
Yeah, so
primarily?
for example, on the, say, gospel or inspirational music, we've worked with Wes Morgan, we've worked with Norman Hutchins. And hip hop, we've even worked with Dougie Fresh,
Cool.
one of the icons of hip hop.
Well, then have you also worked with Moneybagg?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've worked with him. We've worked with some other artists that are with CMG and Endless. Some of the producers also that have worked with them. So, in fact, a couple of the producers that are signed to our publishing company were the primary producers on his first 2 studio albums.
Wow. That's awesome.
And then he recorded almost all of his certainly the first 2 studio albums, and part of the more recent one were all recorded at our studio in Memphis.
That is so cool. So the model you've adopted, it takes a unique approach compared to the typical label deal. Can you tell us more about that? Actually, hold on, let me say that one more time. The model you've adopted takes a unique approach compared to the typical label deal. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So when we think about the historical label deal, I guess even more recently after the streaming movement and you started to see labels trying to find ways to make money, they went to the 360 model.
Which the 360 model, explain what that is for people who don't know.
So when you think about 360 degrees, that's kind of a complete circle. And so they put a circle around all of your revenue streams. So that would mean that the label would participate in every aspect.
They get a piece of everything.
Whether it be brand partnerships, merch, touring, streams, physical, anything that you make money from. So you say you just come up with a fashion line, they participate in that too. And most of those label deals also, now we talk a lot about name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
They often have the exclusive use to your name, image, and your likeness. And so what we're seeing even labels today that, say, for example, an artist can't travel like they used to go into some of these rural towns. So they say they can't come to Muscle Shoals. So what they'll do is they'll just clone the person's voice and have them do a drop. So let's say they want to do a drop for the local radio station. They can do that. Because
I did not know that.
Under name, image, and license.
They basically own you in a way.
Essentially until your contract's up. And if you're unrecouped, the contract can go on forever. And so a lot of times artists don't fully appreciate what they've signed up for. So when we think about deals, we want to ensure that artists are able to retain ownership of their masters, and on the songwriter side, that they're able to retain their publishing. So most of the deals that we do are our company, Beetroot, which is focused on distribution. We call it artist empowerment with distribution. So distribution is somewhat of a commodity business these days, but there's some things that are laid over top that are beneficial to an artist. And so in those deals, it's just a licensed term. So we're able to exclusively distribute this music for a period of time. And then once that term is up, you take those masters wherever you want to take them. On the publishing side, we tend to do publishing administration deals. So we are doing but it's not traditional publishing administration in the sense that all we do is register, collect, and pay out.
Or maybe like send an email to book a co-write or thing. That's right. What I think when I think admin.
Yeah, so, and I think some admin companies now, they don't even do that. All they do is collect. They register and collect. Then the more traditional publishers, they're also creating co-writes. They're doing, sync representations, things like that. So we call it essentially administration with creative. So we don't do the co-publishing deals where we're taking a portion of the copyright. We do an administration deal, but we also provide creative services. So we're setting up writing camps. We're creating co-writes. We're finding ways for our songwriters to get in rooms with artists and work with other songwriters without taking a share of their copyright in order to do it.
Sounds like you guys are very artist first.
Yeah, but it doesn't hurt that my partner and co-founder is a songwriter
Yeah.
because he understands.
He understands creatives and what they need
Yes.
to become successful. And not to say that record labels are not artists first, but when you have someone who is a creative and you know that they have something special and you want to profit off of them in every single way possible, not to mention they have a booking agent that also gets 10%. They've got a business manager that gets 5%. Like, the money starts to not make sense.
That's right.
And it's so funny. A lot of people think when you sign a record deal, you're a millionaire.
Right.
That is not the case. You're probably the brokest you've ever been.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, because your biggest partner is the government. They take a large portion.
Oh, yeah. You got to pay Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam's got to get his cut. Yeah.
So they take their cut right off the top, and then the value chain is such that so many other people that are involved in the process are taking percentages that when it's all said and done, there's not a lot left.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, this is what artists and songwriters don't understand. They need a better comprehensive understanding of the industry, how money is made and how money is retained. Because if you don't understand that, you can make some serious mistakes that will hurt you for years to come.
Yeah, you've got to understand the money side. And I think, too, understanding it will empower you to know that you can make a living in this business. There are people out there that are doing it every single day.
That's right. And one of the things I love about Nashville is that it's ingrained in your head from day one that it's a 10-year town.
Yeah.
So you don't come here thinking that it's an overnight
so
situation.
Many times.
And so you don't cut corners because it's not going to help. Anytime you try to short circuit and shorten or hack the system, you end up paying a dear price. And so I like the fact that people understand I'm signing up for a long-term journey. I'm going to learn along the way. And by the time I get to that 10th year, I'm going to really see some results. And it takes a commitment. It really does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a life commitment.
Yes, it is.
It is. How do you guys make money then if the artist is retaining the rights to their masters and all of the creative side of this? How do you guys ultimately?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's hard to make money, but
yeah,
our model is really a revenue share model, like many other.
Gotcha.
So we participate in the revenue. So our interests are aligned in that we need to help you grow the pie so that we can participate in our piece of it.
Okay.
And so, but our revenue share is only for the duration of the license term
of the contract that you've got. Okay.
So once the contract's up, you no longer are obligated to us.
When you guys sign an artist, do they still have a day job? Are they doing music part-time, full-time, or does it look different on everyone?
So back when we were focusing primarily on our label, we provided the artists with a kind of a monthly stipend they could live on. When it comes to our Beetroot clients, we don't necessarily know what their situation always is. Sometimes they have a day job, sometimes they don't. It depends on where they are in their career. But generally, we don't do your traditional in-the-pocket advances. When we do advances at Beetroot, it's all for marketing, because we know every dollar that goes into marketing your product is going to help you long term. So we don't like just giving people money because we don't know what to do with it.
Well, it's kind of a gamble for you guys because you don't know what's going to, obviously you've got the tools and the resources, but anything can happen. And then for the artist, they're in the red.
Right.
That's the same thing with these 360 deals. Yeah, if you sign a 360 deal with a major record label, they give you $300,000 to live on. Hopefully, it's probably not near that much. Right. I'm being generous here, but that's the red balance. They still have to make all their money back before you see any of that.
That's right. And what a lot of times people don't understand, and this is one of the things I'm preparing a workshop on this, is that depending on who you get the money from, the interest rate is pretty significant. And so when you're taking money from a label or a distributor, that's probably the most expensive money you can take, because usually the recoupment schedule isn't as intuitive as you might think. So for example, they say, oh, well, it's a 50-50 recoupment. And so they're saying, okay, we take 50% and then you get 50%. But what they're not always telling you is the 50% that you're supposed to get isn't actually going to you. It is going back to them to recoup. So you're recouping off of 50% of the income that comes in. So if $1 comes in, they take $50 cents off the top, and then they take 50 cents and apply it to your unrecouped balance.
Did not know that.
So usually you're paying twice the money back before you're fully recouped. So say you took $1 million, they're going to probably end up with $2 million before you have a cleared balance. And so that's why it's expensive money. And so that's why other companies like Sound Royalties, Beat Bread, Roy Fi, they've come into the picture, because now they can help you finance these situations at a rate cheaper than your distributor or your label. Their interest rates are still, 30 to 50%, but it's much less than what your label or your distributor might be charging you. So it's not until you're in the big dollars, the multimillionaires, where you can go to the bank, because the bank, even though we have a lot here in Nashville, there are a lot of banks that are in the entertainment business. They're not really doing deals with people who are doing 10,000 streams or 100,000 streams. They really have to be generating hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not close to $1 million, before the bank's really interested in doing those kinds of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of banks and a lot of churches in
yes, that's so true.
So I want to talk a little bit about adaptive music, which is a division of MIME.
Yes.
And guys, I really encourage you to go check out the Instagram account for adaptive music. What is the handle on the Instagram?
It is adaptive music _.
Okay, adaptive music _. You posted a video, and we're going to drop in the clip here so you guys can hear this.
Greetings, this is Tony Alexander from Adaptive Music. And you might be saying to yourself, that man looks crazy. Look at him, all those hats on his head. But I just want you to understand that many of you are walking around just like this. This is exactly how you're looking. You're wearing all these hats. You don't realize you're wearing all these hats. But the reality of the matter is that's exactly what you're doing, because you have not been able to effectively build a team. So you're doing all the things that a team would do, because you have to wear these hats in order to be able to get things out in this industry. You didn't realize that you are the publisher. What you also didn't realize, that you're also the label. What you also didn't realize is you're also the producer. And you also didn't realize that you're the songwriter and you're the artist. And you're saying to yourself, I don't mind being the artist and the songwriter, but I don't want to be the label. I don't want to be the publishing company. I don't want to be the producer. I don't want to wear all these hats.
So you had all these different colored hats on, and you were explaining how artists wear so many hats and they don't realize it. Why do they not realize they're wearing so many hats? And tell us about the different hats you were discussing.
Yeah, so in a lot of ways it's insecurity, because it's hard to admit what you don't know and that you need help sometimes. This is usually where managers end up coming in. That I've seen it so often, where an artist will, they'll be at Starbucks and the barista was very friendly, and so, oh, you ought to manage me. They're looking for help, but don't know necessarily what to get help in. And so when you don't understand the business, you say, I'm an artist. Did you write the song? Yeah, well, I'm a songwriter. Okay, so I'm a singer-songwriter. Okay, well, who's administering your publishing? Okay, you're the publisher too. And so what else are you doing? You're the label. And so
and then who posted your TikTok yesterday? I did. Now you're your own social media manager. Exactly. I remember, because in the music business, I started out wanting to be an artist. And I was super young. I did the whole American Idol thing and thought I was going to be this big giant star. And that's what got me, is the fact that I was wearing so many hats that everything exploded, truly, because I just got overwhelmed. So how do you help artists deal with these types of issues?
Well, one of the things that we have to help them is to first understand that intentionally or unintentionally, this is what you asked for. And because when we said we wanted labels to go away and we wanted to democratize the industry, we wanted to remove the barriers to entry, the people that did all of these things, that was the label. The label did everything. Now, artists that really want to break through, they have to either do all of these things themselves or identify a team to do them. Where we come in is we try to educate the artist and songwriter to understand that you can't effectively delegate something to somebody that you don't understand. If you don't understand what a publisher does, or you don't understand what a label does, then you very well may ask somebody to do something that's really not their core competency or their
Well, yeah, and the girl at Starbucks, she doesn't know how to register your songs, you know? So then you're literally delegating a task out to somebody else, and both of you have no idea what's going on.
Exactly. And you've given them, usually in perpetuity, a percentage of what they were working on. Because a lot of times when you're working on these kinds of deals, whether it be with a manager or these various groups of publisher, they're getting a portion of your revenue derived from either works created during that period of time that you were working together or anything like that. So now permanently you have made a decision that is going to impact you financially. So what we really want them to do is get a general understanding of the music industry. So all those hats, they're color coded. And a lot of what we do at Adaptive Music, it's color coded. We took the basic building blocks that we all learned in a grammar school or elementary school, that they're primary colors and then they're secondary colors. And so when you blend two things, you get a result. So it makes it easy. When you watch any of the videos on our website or on social media, if we're wearing a certain color, that tells you a specific subject that we're going to be covering. But we want to make sure that we have a lot of that free education. But the next step we walk people through, it's a 3-step process, is step number 1, we call it a readiness audit. And what the creative does, they have a meeting with us. And what we take them through is a long series of questions that are tailored specifically for them to understand your artist profile, your publishing, your marketing, your distribution. How do you manage your assets? All of these things, both music assets and other assets, finance questions. And after that comprehensive discussion, and then we give them a little homework to deliver some information, we then get back together and we say, okay, here's your report card based on your responses and how you're handling these things. Where do you stand as far as being ready to maximize your economic value in the music industry? And I think for a lot of the people who've gone through the program, it's a shock to them to see, because we do it's color coded as well. So instead of giving people A's through F's, it goes from emerald green being you're doing a great job to being, just this scarlet
so
red
great.
that says you're
Really feeling on that, yeah.
So they can just look at the color spectrum and see where their key areas of concern are. And then step 2 is, okay, we're not just going to point out your problems, but then we want to help you build a plan. So this is the plan to shore up your gaps. And if we can shore up those gaps, and then step 3 is we can coach you through all of this. So it's not focusing anywhere on creative. It's all business. So that when you finish the program, you now have a repeatable system. You have templates. You have systems in place to be able to do what needs to be done to maximize your income. So, for example, if I'm an artist that doesn't stream really well, and I make $10,
Mm-hmm.
I need to make sure I collect all $10 because all $10 are precious.
Yeah.
So it's not about necessarily that I need to make $1 million. It's about making sure that every dollar I've earned, I collect.
You're collecting it.
Yes.
Because there are several songwriters and artists out there, even if you're listening to this right now, you might have money that you're not collecting.
That's exactly right. We have we've had several sessions we've done with the MLC, for example. And what was just amazing was we had so many people show up that had either never heard of the MLC, they weren't registered with the MLC, and they were just leaving money on the table. There was just so much money waiting for them. And all they had to do was register and go find these.
And it's free.
It's free.
And it takes, what, 5-10 minutes at the most to register?
At most. And the tools on the MLC website are just so good.
They're unbelievable.
That they can easily figure out a lot of these things. But unfortunately, they assume, like, for example, someone who's not really that knowledgeable of how things work, they say, well, I'm with BMI or ASCAP or
and that's all they're with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all they've done, which is a great first step.
It is a great first step. But if you think that BMI is your publisher, that's
not the case.
And so you have to better understand that there are probably 10 to 12 revenue streams on the publishing side, probably another a dozen on the sound recording side. If you're not leveraging them all, you're leaving money on the table. And that's what we're trying to educate people on.
Do people have to live in Memphis or Atlanta
No.
to get a hold of these servers, or you guys do online sessions via Zoom?
Yes, we had a session with a person just on Monday that's based in New Jersey. And we also have someone who just signed up that is based in Germany. So we're starting to lock in, and that's even more amazing because this is someone who's based outside of the U.S. They do a lot of things in the U.S., so they need the help with things that are European based as well as things that are US
That's
based.
another thing too. The different countries,
Yes.
you can collect royalties.
That's right. Because in fact, the person that we were talking to from New Jersey, he was about to leave for Europe. He does a lot of touring there. He works with a lot of producers there and was really not that familiar with neighboring rights. And so we know here in the United States, artists aren't paid for terrestrial radio, but they are paid for terrestrial radio in other countries. And so because of that difference, there's a lot of money that's locked up outside of the U.S. that's not always collected by a sound exchange or even your PRO. So it's important to have familiarity. If you have a lot of international activity, you record there, you perform there, you do things there, there's probably a lot of money that you probably don't even realize you have.
That's awesome. Make sure you guys go check out Adaptive Music. It's so great. Regarding Memphis, what do you think makes Memphis so special?
Well, it just seems like Memphis and the Delta area and Muscle Shoals, this cradle of that part of the South is like the birthplace of most mainstream American genres.
Oh, it is. Was the soundtrack of everyone's lives and will be.
Yeah, from
forever.
Blues, soul, R&B.
That's another thing too. It's a whole melting pot of different things.
Because I even think about when Alan Freed coined the term rock and roll.
Yeah.
He was thinking about Memphis. And so I'll just give a quick anecdote. I was, when we bought the building that our studio is now in, there was a safe in there. We use it now to keep backup drives for recording sessions. And we had to go get a locksmith to get into it. And so we got this person who works with all the major banks. And so he came and he got into the safe, and it was like Al Capone's vault. It was empty. But
you think you were like fingers crossed, maybe
something was going to be in there, something precious. But so he got into it, and on his way out, he gave me an invoice, and he also gave me his CD, which lets me know that one thing about Memphis, everybody is in music. Even though his core job is as a locksmith, he's also
He's making
an
music.
artist.
Sometimes I like to call them closeted songwriters.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I had no idea. Even in Muscle Shoals, I'm like, you write songs? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just in the DNA. It's in the water.
Yeah.
And so when you're in an environment that is just so naturally creative, you just can't help to see it as a special place.
That's awesome. So you've lived in Memphis for 14 years, you said, and you're originally from Maryland.
I'm from Maryland, yes.
Did you grow up in a musical household or?
No, not really. Music was kind of in the background. Though my parents met at Tennessee State, so they were here in Nashville.
Okay.
They met at Tennessee State in the band. So they were musical, and they had all of us learn instruments, but not really. Music was always the background of what was going on. It was just an inquisitive household where we were just charged and challenged to pursue whatever we were passionate about.
Yeah, that's great. What does revitalizing the Memphis music scene mean to you? Or as you expand to different cities, what does it mean to revitalize a music scene in general?
I think what it really means is to redirect some of the attention and spotlight, bring awareness to the talent in these environments, and then try to create the kind of infrastructure that allows for these individuals to not necessarily look for handouts, but to be able to create opportunities of financial stability. I know that there are a lot of programs, and I'm not the biggest supporter of a lot of programs that just want to give money to artists if they haven't educated them on how to leverage that money. So one of the things that we're working on, it's kind of our moonshot attempt, is we want to help to launch 100 artist-led labels and 100 songwriter-led.
Oh my gosh!
Now, not every songwriter is destined to be a publisher, and not every artist is destined to be able to be an executive at a label. But when we think about labels, they have a bad reputation because of some of the practices in the past. I think things have changed. The real issues historically were a misaligned distribution of the income, ownership, and also creative freedom or creative control.
Well, and the industry has changed, and we've talked about this on the show before. It's like used to people would go to Walmart and buy the physical copy of the album. So much more money was getting exchanged back in the day. And now that's just not the case.
No. So there are other things that have to be done. It has to be a comprehensive picture. And that's why people are always telling artists, you're really a brand, because there's so many other things besides your music that you can monetize. So yeah. I think so when we think about what needs to be done, and if you want to have somebody who's leading that kind of organization, it has to be somebody who has the inclination and the aptitude to really understand the business climate and be able to build something beyond just making music.
What is one skill you believe has been crucial to your success?
Communication.
You are a really good communicator.
Oh, well, thank you.
And of course, you're an attorney as well, but you really are.
Well, I think that, and when I think about communication, I really think about two things. I think about the ability to listen and then the ability to ask lots of questions. And so I wasn't the best student growing up. I know my parents, they were wondering about me. I turned things around in college and did well in college, did well in law school and graduate school. But what I realized about school really focuses on rewarding those who have all the answers, but life in business rewards the people who have the best questions. Because the more you ask questions, the better you understand what people's needs are. And as an entrepreneur, so Made in Memphis Entertainment is my 7th startup that I've been involved in.
Whoa.
Across different industries. And I realized that if you really want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to meet a customer need. And the greater the need you solve, the greater the reward ultimately for you. And so you figure out what people need by asking questions, not by having all the answers. And so we spend a lot of time just asking questions. And that's where adaptive music came from, is we realized that most of the artists and songwriters that are on our roster at the MIME companies, it's invitation only. So it's not like you can just sign up and start putting your stuff out. But there's a group of people who may not have access that really do need this information. And so we said, well, adaptive music is going to be the one business we have that is not invitation only, where we can bring some value to people, because the more we talked with artists and songwriters, the more we realized that there was a real need for people to be able to have a business education that would complement their creative education.
Well, and I've said this on the show before too, you are a walking billboard for yourself. Singers, songwriters, we're entrepreneurs. We've got to take care of not only the creative side of things, but the business side of things as well. So it's a really important skill to learn, and it can be learned.
Yes.
Just as songwriting or playing guitar can be learned.
That's right.
If you could give a piece of advice to artists, songwriters who are listening to this right now and they're like, man, I really want to be successful in this business, what would you tell them?
Now, this might seem a little counterintuitive, but I would say try to make a living doing something else. And the reason I say that is because if music isn't your calling and it truly isn't your passion, then it's not going
to work out.
So if you can go and do something else and be happy, do it.
That's such great. Please go do it.
Please do it, because that is going to allow you to have a more satisfying life. The music business is hard. I think we spend many days miserable, and then there's those moments that just keep pulling you back in. Mm-hmm. It's like I need to get out of this business. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. And those moments bring you back. And so if you can literally go do something else, and the music business isn't calling your name and dragging you back day after day, then it's not for you.
Well, and it's not about getting to the top of the mountain. You'll talk to, and I'm sure you've had this conversation before, where you talk to a successful songwriter or artist who's had the number one, and the conversations that I've had, they talk more about the journey of how they got there, because when that happens, it feels good for a minute, but then the cycle starts all over again. So you've really got to enjoy the journey rather than the destination.
That's right. And the only time you can truly enjoy the journey is when you know you're following your
yes, calling. You know you were made to do it.
Exactly.
And you couldn't live another minute knowing that if you had the opportunity to not do it, or if you wanted to do it, you would die knowing that you couldn't.
That's right.
If that makes any sense.
No, that's exactly right. And so a lot of times people come to me and they say, well, look, you're a patent attorney. You work with inventors and all that kind of stuff. What are you doing in the music business? And I have to be honest. I didn't go looking for the music business, but what I can say is I understood that part of my calling in life is people development. And the music business affords an opportunity of people who need development. That's where my passion comes from. I love working with people and seeing them succeed. Excuse me. I love seeing people win, seeing people achieve their goals. So what I don't do is I don't dream for them, but I certainly try to help them achieve those dreams. And so this has been rewarding for me, because I'm seeing the mission of MIME come to pass. And it's a twofold mission. Number one is serve creatives. That's our number one. And we make that clear to everybody. Serve creatives is number one. Number two is to develop the next generation of music executives. We want to make sure that the next generation of executives have a servant heart, a servant mentality. These are going to be people who know their place in the industry, that they're not chasing red carpets. What they're trying to do is help somebody achieve their professional and economic goals. And when you have that kind of climate for artists to operate in, that they're working with executives that aren't looking to exploit them and take advantage of them. And it becomes an industry that I think is more healthy than it was historically.
You guys are a soft place to land for artists and creatives. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you for everything that you do for songwriters and creatives.
Oh no,
it's incredible.
It's a pleasure to be here, and as you can tell, I love talking about the work because it's meaningful work.
Thank you so much, Tony. Really, really appreciate you hopping on with us today.
All right.
Tony Alexander, y'all. He is awesome. Go check out MIME at MIME LLC on social media. That's MIME LLC. Thank you again so much, Tony, for being here. Also, make sure to check us out on social media at MLC_US or visit us at themlc.com. And don't forget, if you've got a music business question, reach out to our podcast hotline at podcast@themlc.com. We'll see you guys for our next episode.